Welcome to Reinventing-U. I'm your host, Danielle Silverman. I believe that in today's world of ever-constant evolution, the only career change that matters is when what you do matches who you are and what you believe. This show is where you'll learn how embracing change and reinventing yourself will help you navigate any disruptions and lead a life of happiness and fulfillment, especially in this ever-changing world. Your purpose and your meaning will drive your personal transformation. As I like to say, it's your vision, your life. Be passionate about it. Reinventing-U starts now. Hello, and welcome to Reinventing-U, a show where we talk about all things career-related. I'm your host, Danielle Silverman, and today we'll talk further about exploring alternative career paths with my very special guest. I found this quote earlier from Mary Kay Ash, the founder of Mary Kay Cosmetics. She said, "Don't limit yourself. Many people limit themselves to what they think they can do. But you can go as far as your mind lets you. What you believe, you can achieve." With that, let me introduce and please meet Sabrina Lairy. Hello, Sabrina.
Hi, thank you for introducing me. So lovely. Sorry if you caught some background noise. My Google Home thought you were talking to her.
Okay.
But now I've resolved that problem. Thank you for such a warm welcome. I appreciate it.
Now, let me say a little bit about you. Give me a little bit about your background, because I think it's really important to our conversation today. Sabrina, you're currently a lecturer in the accounting department at the John Molson School of Business at Concordia University, which is in Montreal, which is also one of my alma maters. You're a purpose-driven teacher devoted to mentoring and coaching university students to achieve their greatest potential. And I can vouch for this myself. You've got very positive energy and enthusiasm abounds. And that promotes positive learning environments where your students are more engaged, more receptive, and happy to learn. And for me, I think that's even more important because of the subject that you teach. So for everybody listening, Sabrina earned her CPA title, that's Certified Professional Accountant, or Professional Accountant, I think is the current term.
Yes.
From McGill University, which is a world-renowned university here in Montreal. She has several years of professional accounting experience on top of that. And throughout her career, she has prioritized growing and sharing business knowledge with as many people as possible via her various leadership positions in both academic and professional settings. So Sabrina, again, I'm thrilled to have you here. We're going to talk today about your career change, because even though you did work in an accounting firm and you loved what you did, there was something about the situation that didn't fit right for you. So can you take us back to that pivotal moment when you first realized that your personal values clashed with your jobs? What emotions surged through you?
I remember at the time I was certainly working a lot, always working very late into the evenings, often working, at the time it was the pandemic, I was working alone at home, just in front of my computer as an accountant. So I remember just often sitting for long periods of time, working more in an isolated environment, working primarily on Excel with like financial statements. And in the accounting world, people want their financial statements earlier and earlier now. So we prepared monthly financial statements in my last professional role. And it became, after a while, every month having to close the books and prepare that set of that reporting package. It was so taxing. It was very draining. And I had been at that job for 3 years and I really liked it. And I really honestly enjoyed and learned a lot. But that closing process every month, at a certain point, it became super redundant, and it would eventually be something that I wouldn't look forward to as much as compared to when I first started. And then that's when I started realizing something was off with work and me.
What made you realize that it was your values that were different from those of the organization?
I think I would just feel such strong emotions, like especially of like anxiety, frustration, especially with the frustration of putting in a lot of hours, working in an isolated environment without a lot of contact with others.
So you needed that contact and it just wasn't available to you at the time.
Yeah, and a lot of, let's say, I think in the pandemic, I think a lot of roles became more isolating because of working remotely, but especially in accounting, a lot of the work you do is independent. So even, it's not like I would go in a Zoom room and have active meetings where from those meetings I would produce work. Most of the work I would do was actually quite siloed. So it was difficult
because you're a
I like
people
to talk to
person.
people, as you know.
Yeah. So would it be safe to say that one of your values was really to be in relationships with people?
Yes, that's something that, for example, in my current role, I meet so many people. I have 300 students over the past, since I last met you, we met a year ago around this time, and then I had 0 students, and now 1 year later, I have almost 300 students that I work with, some of them very closely, some of them to varying degrees. They all have different work styles, but I love to see them going to school. The energy really motivates me. I remember when classes started in September, towards the end of August, I was getting a bit lazy, you know, and as soon as I walked into John Molson, my business school that I go to, all that energy, all the students, they really, I don't know, made me come alive almost.
They pumped you up. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a true extrovert that needs to get her energy from
Yes,
around her, right?
exactly. Honestly, like, it was just so nice to be in such an energized environment where people are willing to learn and ready to learn. And after, I feel like a long summer break, the students come in more refreshed and excited compared to maybe the winter break and starting of the winter semester. And it's honestly very motivating and very energizing to be around that
Very
many
cool.
people.
But it took some courage to leave a secure job, doing something that you essentially loved, to go into something completely unknown. And I know many people fear the unknown, especially when you're leaving a secure job. So how did you cope with that uncertainty, especially in those days or those nights, those cold winter nights when doubts started creeping in?
Yeah, well, let me just take you back. I guess I was very frustrated at the times when I, for example, wasn't getting what I wanted out of the job, or things weren't going exactly the way I wanted them to go about a little more than a year ago. Then when we met, I guess, working with you almost like, I think we met almost weekly or every second week. I would kind of address those fears or bring them up with you. So working with somebody close to me that I felt like I had a good connection with, which is really important, helped me address those fears. And you would actually help me minimize them or make me realize they're not so realistic, or I have a lot more control in the things that I fear than not. And then obviously, I didn't call you every 5 minutes. I have friends, I have a family, I have a man in my life, and I definitely relied on my friends and my family and him a lot to help me on those times that I was really stressed about it. And honestly, a lot of their advice was to keep like an open mind and like follow also like my heart, and realize like I'm trying to do this process to make things better, so it's not as anxiety ridden as, like, ideally the output that would have arrived would be positive. So it kind of helped me calm things down.
So what I'm hearing is that you have you got put together, you already had, but relied a lot on a support system
No,
that is around you, family, friends, career counselor,
yeah,
and that helped you through things, certainly. And looking at those fears as well, and not just, shoving them under the rug and sweeping them under the rug, I think is the expression, and just pretending they're not there, but really having a hard look at them and saying, okay, what is it that I'm afraid of, and what can I control?
Exactly. I even remember a conversation we had, like one of the exercise was actually the fear exercise. And you essentially made, my homework was to identify my fears and find ways using kind of like cognitive behavioral therapy techniques to minimize the negative feelings I had towards those fears, but also not just doing the handwritten exercise, talking about it one-on-one with you in a coaching setting was really nice too, because every time that fear would pop up, I would remember things from the conversation that you had said, and it would in that moment, when that feeling would be like maybe at its peak, for example, at a later point in time, it would help minimize it internally.
And so do you still use that sometimes?
I do. I remember a lot of our conversations actually. Sometimes one of the most notable conversations was when you made me do my visualization exercise. That was definitely like a key moment for me when I realized that teaching was what I really wanted to do, because when we were doing the visualization exercise, you were like telling me, close my eyes, imagine my best life, imagine I was working in a job that I really liked, and I saw myself in a classroom, and that was really one of my bigger aha moments. And I think about that at least once a week when I'm going to school,
Really?
or
Wow.
whenever I have a hard moment at school, because even though obviously it's my dream job, there's always going to be little things with the jobs, that with any job, that's going to be maybe more taxing than other tasks. And when I'm having those moments, I think of that conversation too, because I know that not every, life comes with everything in the basket.
Absolutely. You just anticipated my next question, which was, when did teaching first appear on your radar as an alternative career path? So you seem to have described a light bulb moment, but it wasn't the first time that you ever did any teaching.
No, I have been involved in teaching. Well, when I was younger, one of my first jobs was working as a coordinator, which is essentially like a counselor, a camp counselor, honestly, for a youth group. So a coordinator for a youth group, essentially a camp counselor in a community center where I taught these kids financial literacy skills. And we did it through like really fun summer activities. Like they would start their own business, and I would be there to be an adult in charge of this children's business. But it was really cool. If my students did so much stuff, they would do a lot of service type of roles. And then from there, that was one of my youngest experience. I was probably about 16, 17, like just finishing high school when I started that role.
Yeah.
And then obviously I went to school. I went through the school process. I had always been like a tutor, a mentor in student positions that I could do. And I was a TA for many, many years. And then eventually I would teach some guest lecturing classes. And at one point in my life, before we even met in 2018, I even explored becoming a teacher, but it was too complicated given that I wasn't a CPA at 100% at the time. I was still in the process. And it was very difficult. So I kind of gave up on that dream and went into like the traditional path of an accountant, working in a firm, working in an office, because I didn't think that the teaching dream was real. I had just put it on the shelf, even though I had really enjoyed it. And then after meeting with you and doing all that self-reflection, I realized like all those early moments in my life actually really contributed positively to some of my favorite work experiences. And that's how we started getting the ball rolling with teaching. Because I don't know if you remember, but I was remember over 20 jobs. I had everything from barista to I don't even remember what some of the stuff on that. I was like learning and development coordinator, HR I was interested in, working in sales. I had so many interests. So this one really helped me realize that I like that light bulb moment, that visualization exercise that we did helped me realize that my happy place is really in the classroom.
If I remember correctly, though, you didn't want to lose the skills that you already had, right? So
Exactly.
it was very important for you to be able to continue to use those. But you eventually did get your CPA. Oh, and
Yes.
by the way, exploring many different things, even if they're not related, it's okay with that. It's okay to do that because sometimes you just have to open up your mind and just explore and what if,
Yes.
and just think about, and then go and explore a little bit further in each one area to figure out, how does it fit with me? Where does it fit?
Exactly.
In my energy, in my body, which is why we did the visualization exercise. And that's when I gather you found the one thing that stood out from the rest.
Honestly, yeah, no, but one thing that you mentioned is like it's important to explore your options, the words what if. And to be honest, really that's what I was thinking at that time when I was exploring my options. I was like, this is the time to think about it. So it's better for me to think about it now and put it on the list and know that I thought about it, as opposed to like always having it in the back of my mind. So that's why I really appreciated it, even also exploring like so many options, because once I made the decision, I knew any other, even if I was remotely, slightly, a little bit interested in it, I still took the time to explore so many careers, right? I think I spent weeks exploring them, like on the website you gave me.
Okay, yeah, very cool. So you did get your CPA. Congratulations. That's quite an achievement. Remind me, was it you got it after writing the exam once?
Yes, I wrote the exam in 2016, and then I finally got my official full title in 2020. No, I wrote the exam in 2017, sorry, when I graduated McGill.
Yeah.
And then I got my full title in 2020 after finishing getting my public experience. You need 2 years of experience working in public accounting before you can become a CPA.
Forget if correct me if I'm wrong, but it's very rare for somebody to pass the CPA exam the first time round.
It depends where and how you do the program. McGill has an exceptionally high pass rate, and I loved all my teachers at McGill. So no one really in my class, in my immediate circle, end up having to redo it twice. But
Cool.
it really depends who your circle is, where you write, how you prepared for the exam.
Yeah.
And I actually teach CPA courses, so I think every candidate has potential to pass.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
So, given that, how would you say that your CPA background has enriched your teaching methods?
Well, I teach exactly that. I really teach CPA courses, and I'm a CPA, and I base my courses on my academic experiences, but also my professional experiences. I've been on both sides, where I'm learning the theory, but also applying it. And that's really what an accountant needs to do. It's learn the theory, apply it, but also be able to identify what clients might need when they don't even know what their needs are. It's being able to explain complex financial information to the users, depending on the user's level of financial knowledge. So I've learned so much of these skills at work, but I also learned a lot of these skills starting at school. And I remember the building blocks of how it was taught to me. And then that really informs the way I teach my students, and I help them feel motivated about the future, give them a little insight about what the years to come look for them typically in the financial world, because accounting has a very typically, for most accountants, that have a very linear progression for the first few years until they become a CPA. So it really helps me inform my students and keep them up to date about all the new changes in the profession as well.
So is this an instance where you would say this is your experience both professionally and as a student, as a CPA student, becomes an unexpected advantage in the classroom?
Yeah, even personality choices too, like I'm highly organized, things like that. I feel like it helps a lot having those skills in the classroom. But using the skills that I learned as a CPA, like for example, explaining financial information, preparing financial information, analyzing it, being able to fully understand that from A to Z, it really helps explain it better to the students as well. And then having real business examples when right off the top of my head, when they want one about, for example, do we capitalize this cost or not? Coming up with that example in on the spot, that's what my experience gives me.
So how do you reframe those skills so that they resonate with young you? Because you're essentially teaching first year. Well, if you're doing a CPA, it's not first year anymore. But
I teach first year undergrad accounting, and I teach first year graduate accounting. So I teach a lot of first year students, but at different levels of their education.
So how do you reframe the accounting skills to resonate with these young minds?
I definitely try to make it relatable to them. So instead of talking about, for example, overhead costs in terms of a manufacturing setting, I'll tell them about, for example, overhead costs in terms of their life. Overhead costs would be your hydro bill, would be your insurance that you pay, would be your rent. So I try to make it really relatable to them, because at the end of the day, they're not just mini accountants, they're actually mini humans who have a lot of financial transactions that can resonate. So I try to make it really relatable to businesses that they might understand, like might be more familiar with. For example, I bring up a lot of Sephora examples in my classroom, a lot of PlayStation examples, things that I know that my students are interested in, and things that I know that they'll understand. Like I said, for example, when we're talking about overhead costs, I bring it to their personal life, not a manufacturing setting.
Like any business tries to understand its clients and what it is that keeps them up at night. That's
Yeah,
That's
I definitely try to understand the student perspective, like having a student-centered approach to teaching, and I really like abide by it, is really essentially that, as understanding my clients. My clients are my students, and what do they need? That's taking a student-centered approach, and
absolutely.
it's been working pretty well.
I'm just thinking they must adore you for it. What specifically has been the reaction?
I think they like me. I hope they like me. I see. I feel like it's positive. I have a like good attendance in my class. I don't even take attendance for my first year in my undergrad program, and it's like 100+ people lecture, and I have often more than 100 people there, and it feels good to know that these students are interested in hearing and learning about my teaching methods and how it can help them, because that's really like why I do it. And I think the feedback is so far positive.
I'm not surprised.
Thank
Well,
you.
let's take a break and then we'll continue with more questions when we come back.
Okay, thank you.
So, Sabrina, is there a particular student interaction or a classroom moment that validated all of your choices and all of the sacrifices that you made?
Yeah, definitely. It's not just one moment, it's many moments throughout the day, many moments throughout the semester, when students come to me with problems and I help them solve it. And then later I see the progression of, I usually meet these students for 3-4 months. It depends on when the semester starts. So usually I meet them in week 1. I don't know them. We're all strangers. And then by week 12, we're all good friends. And I've helped them solve many problems. They've helped me adapt my course because I'm still a new teacher. I'm learning from them just as much as they're learning from me. And just seeing their progress over the semester, being able to watch them grow as individuals, watching them find something for at first difficult, then helping them, and then they're doing really well on their exams. Like, honestly, it's all really helpful. And then they also all give me a lot of positive feedback. Like, I have a lot of energy in the classroom, and I think energy derives more energy definitely in the classroom. And I'm positive, so they're positive back with me. So it feels really good. And sometimes they give me nice compliments, like, "Miss, you're my favorite teacher," and it makes me feel good, to be honest.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So there's so many things I want to ask you. Were there any dark moments in your transition when you were thinking about making a choice and worried that you might be making the wrong choice?
Yeah, definitely. It's, for me, honestly, to think about the decision, it was easy. What was hard was, for example, saying goodbye to my old job, all my old friends that I at one point would talk to every day on either like Teams, or somehow either virtually talking or actually on Zoom face-to-face talking, that the teams that I would work with the team that I would work with were so nice, and it was really hard to let go of all those people that I had made friends with over the several years that I had been working in industry. And that was really, really hard. Honestly, that was probably the hardest part, and saying actually having to make the phone calls and saying like, "Oh, I won't be there
And,
for the future."
and
Basically quitting the job was really hard, but and it kept me up at night a lot. Like, I had many sleepless nights before making that final call. And I remember that morning making that call, and it was hard, but having my partner next to me supporting me, it was really helpful in those hard times. And like, I feel like the process of making this decision, to be honest, there wasn't dark moments in the process of choosing to be a teacher, because it felt so right. The decision felt so right, and the ball kept rolling, and it kept rolling in the right direction with your guidance and your help, but also with like all the past experiences I had in teaching. I really built on that, to be honest. And like, that was something I didn't want to lose, not just the actual like technical knowledge, but I had a lot of friends in the accounting world. For example, how I got my job at Concordia was through an old teacher. I reached out to her. I told her I was interested in what she did for a living, and perhaps she could give me some information on what it's like to be a teacher in a university. And then from that conversation, I learned, I meet somebody new. And then from that conversation, I learned that they have a few classes available starting in January. And now it's October 2020.
Two.
to, yeah, 2020, October 2022. So this is about a year ago. And those classes became available in January, just like my fingers crossed hoped. And as it happens, I was just happy. I knew like the ball was rolling, but like there was difficult moments in saying goodbye, difficult moments in starting the process with you. Like essentially the decisions itself was easy, but execution was the hard part.
Execution.
Putting my money where my mouth was.
Yeah. So you've raised a couple of things here. One was, and a lot of my clients actually have the same thing. They want to leave their job, but they don't want to leave the people they're working with behind. So yeah, understandably that's difficult, but sometimes when relationships are meant to remain intact, they do. You keep in touch.
I am still friends with many of my friends from my old job. I actually had a birthday party recently and several of them came and I was happy, honestly.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And the other part that struck me in what you were saying was really the role of networking in actually landing this job and finding it. So what you described is going to see one of your favorite teachers and asking what is it like to teach at university is really about the research of finding out. It's what we call an informational interview.
Yes.
But bottom line is it's networking, right?
Yes, it's networking without the intention of networking. Almost, it's networking with it's no stakes networking. I just want to get information on this career. But typically, I did this not only for that job, I did it for many jobs, as you know, all the different jobs I was interested in that I had a lead in. And first of all, it gave me like a world of information from somebody that I knew. So they knew a little bit about me. I knew a little bit about them, their personality and how they adapted to maybe the environment, for example. But it also gave me a lot of like positive energy from those people. Like as soon as I told them I was just interested in their career, almost every single one of them was ready to link me with somebody new or even give me a job interview on the spot, things like that. It was crazy. I didn't realize that networking could be so powerful. And ultimately without it, I wouldn't have the job I have now. And I'm so happy. So thank you for that advice. Networking is quite something I didn't realize.
And it's not about asking for a job. It's nothing.
No.
It's what a lot of people fear today. So for somebody who's teetering on the edge of that, major career shift and who is paralyzed by the fear of quote unquote networking, what would you say to these people?
I would say it's all about the way you frame how you want to talk to that person. So it's not saying, hey, can we talk? I want something from you. It's not about that. It's saying, hi, I really admire what you're doing, so much so that I'm thinking about it myself. And I would like to hear more about what you do. How does it work? And as you taught me, and I will teach maybe your audience, people love to talk about themselves and they will be happy to share their life experiences with you. And that was the reaction I got from 100% of the people I spoke to. I spoke to people who work in, for example, like the nonprofit industry, who are basically donation generators, people who work in learning and development, people who work in teaching, people who work in different types of accounting jobs that I personally just didn't happen to touch that path, but maybe another path in the direct financial world. I spoke to people who worked in human resources, sales, who own small businesses, and they were all interested in talking to me and giving me resources after the call. And like I said, a lot of the resources I could have gone anyway almost from those calls. So I would say just frame your question nicely, send out that email and await some replies.
And be ready to give in return.
Of course, yes. Now I work directly with the woman who recommended me for this job. And I work directly with her. I teach her first year students. She's the director of the CPA program at Concordia. Her name is Eva, and she's so nice. And now I assist her in creating like course materials and revamping the first year content. So it definitely goes both ways, but now I get to do something I love with her.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. So even more reason to believe in networking, let's say.
Yeah, it's serious. And usually networking, it shouldn't feel fake. It should feel when it's working, it feels like it's working and it feels like there's just good chemistry. It shouldn't be like, oh, hi, how are you? Thank you. Let's make a deal. It's not like that. It's more human interaction, and it's about having that natural connection as well, I think.
A natural connection is important also. And sometimes, was there ever anybody that you met where there wasn't that natural connection?
I wouldn't say exactly, but you interview people about how they feel about their jobs, and you might find somebody that maybe on the outside looks very happy with their job, but then you interview them and learn a lot of negative things maybe about that role. And sometimes that's a reality for some people. It doesn't mean it's the reality for everybody taking on that role, but it was something that was definitely I didn't expect when I was doing my interviews. But now, less naively thinking back, obviously there's going to be some people that have not always 100% positive experiences. So it wasn't that they were negative about me asking them, it was just they didn't have positive work experiences.
They didn't have positive working experiences. Yeah. Did you ever meet somebody where it didn't click, where you didn't have that natural connection with somebody?
Danielle, you know me, it clicks with everybody.
I guess you're the wrong person to ask.
Yes, I'm the wrong person. It clicks with everybody for me. Usually, it's rare that I don't, even if it doesn't work out well, I usually find something in common with people, as you know, and as you are yourself. We are both natural ENFPs. So that means that we're good with talking with people. I think I can attest that for you. Can you attest for me?
Yes, for sure. Actually, for anybody who doesn't know, that's a reference to the Myers-Briggs type indicator, a personality type assessment, extroverted, intuitive, feeling, and perceiving.
And me and Danielle learned working together, we have the exact same personality type based on this test, and there's 16 options. So what are the chances? There's 1 in 16 chances that we would have been having the same exact one.
Maybe, although I am naturally an introvert, but over the years,
that's so crazy. I isolate on the introvert extrovert scale. So Danielle, maybe that's why we got along so well, and we had our natural chemistry from day one too.
Well, natural chemistry is important. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that sometimes it will happen that there is no chemistry there, and that's okay.
That's okay too. It's like dating. If it doesn't work, you just keep swiping.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Totally. So don't get discouraged. Tell everybody out there, don't get discouraged if there is no chemistry with whoever it is that you're meeting.
Yeah, it just means you have to move on to the next person. And like I said, when I interviewed someone, for example, that didn't have positive experiences about their job, I tried to find somebody maybe in the same industry where I could interview them, and maybe they had positive experiences that they could share with me so that I could see both sides of the picture, right? Because it could be a double-edged sword. Only hearing the positives of one industry might make your expectations too high. But for example, when I learned about the teaching industry, and one of the realities I face as a TA is it's actually quite a bit of work. It doesn't look like it when you're just in front of the class and everything looks easy, but making it look easy is actually not easy.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think of all the corrections that you have to make.
I don't personally grade. I have a TA. Now I'm in a different position.
Okay.
But it's more about creating course materials that can be receptive by 100 people. Imagine a room, 100 people, 100 learning styles. I have to make materials that work for those who are visual, those who are analytical, those who are audible, maybe hear more as learners. So everything I do, I have to adapt to at least more than 30 people.
But so, and those that are kinesthetic, that must be more difficult also, because kinesthetic means doing stuff, really.
Yeah. Like those students, I tell them you have to touch your calculator.
Or count on your fingers, right?
Yes, we were doing that the other day. I was teaching the students for the first time. Some of my students were using Excel for the first time, my undergrad students. And I was teaching them all the different tricks about Excel, and some things you have to do a little bit of math in your head. So I taught them, okay, you can count on your fingers. So that could be good for my kinesthetic students.
Yes. Wonderful. Now, these kinds of skills, did you know those before going to teach, or did you learn them when you started teaching?
It was more on the in some ways, because I was highly involved in corporate training, because I was more senior and a senior specialist in my previous professional roles, one of the expectations for me was a lot of learning, training, and development. So in that previous role, I learned a lot about how to train people, but it was more one-on-one or very small group settings. So learning to adapt that to a larger audience was definitely a new skill, and learning not to get shy when you walk into a room full of 100 people waiting to hear from you was definitely a new skill. But the actual act of teaching and understanding how people receive information and how they absorb it, that I feel like was something I learned through all my other previous teaching roles, but the way I tweak it for this role is different.
That's brilliant. So you had some experience and you're trying to you adapted it to this particular environment. Something else you just said reminded me that when you first started out, you actually had a fear of speaking in public.
Oh my God, yes. Do you remember my fear of public speaking? It feels like so long ago, but it was probably a little, even less than a year ago, not even 9 months ago.
So why don't you tell the listeners what you did to overcome that fear of public
What
speaking?
a blast from the past. I would love to. Believe it or not, I used to have a fear of public speaking. This is one of the biggest barriers in 2018 that stopped me from really pursuing teaching. And it was something that I actually told myself that really helped me keep that dream down. I was like, oh, if I have a fear of public speaking, how am I gonna be a teacher? You're in public. And then from there, Danielle, you suggested I go to Toastmasters, and I signed up at Toastmasters, which is a organization that helps people practice public speaking in a public setting, and it was really, really wonderful. It really helped me in terms of learning how to just get up in front of the group, and they actually made me get up in front of the group and speak. And then once I did that, I got a lot of positive feedback right off the bat, actually. And then I felt less and less shy. And from there, I realized I had a lot more skills than maybe I initially thought, and I had a lot more to offer a room. And after getting over that initial hump, honestly, it was quite quickly. I don't think I maybe went to 5-6 times, and then after the 6th time I started teaching.
Wow, you're a
Yeah.
fast learner on top of it.
Yeah, and I think 5-6 might be generous. Maybe it was 3 or 4 times I had gone. I practiced a few times talking in front of people, and then the next time I was talking in front of people, it was 60 of my new students in January.
Yeah. So to anybody listening, Toastmasters is an extraordinary organization. I don't know how long it's existed, but a very, very long time. It's international, so it doesn't matter what part of the world you live in, you will find a Toastmasters chapter. There are several in Montreal, some French, some English, some bilingual. So just to tell you, yeah, just to let people know that, you know, they abound anywhere you are in the world. It's not expensive, and they're really extraordinary people who just thrive on helping you learn how to speak in public, whatever the reason is. So it could be, you know, for something like this, it could be if you want to become a public speaker, professional speaker, if you want to, you know, get up at your sister's wedding and give a speech or something like that, you know, that you can do. It's meant for everything. And the wonderful thing is that it demystifies, just like networking, it demystifies the fear of speaking in public. Wonderful organization. So thanks for that. Yeah. I'd say the student surpassed the master in that regard.
Now I don't get too nervous, and when I do, I just sit at the podium for like 1 or 2 minutes before, and then all of a sudden I forget that I'm in front of 100 people, and it's just like talking to you, Danielle, honestly.
That's very sweet.
Yeah.
It's a good place to stop and pick up right after the break. Sabrina, I see you somehow as a beacon for many, many people. So how do you hope that your story will inspire or change the way others approach their career decisions?
Thank you for such a compliment. And honestly, one thing that I remember, for example, now I work with a lot of students who are in their early 20s at that point in their life where they're making big decisions. And one thing I remind them in my classroom all the time is think about how you feel when you're in the classroom. Think about how you feel when you're in an accounting class versus your marketing versus your any other, business type class. Most of my students are business students. So if you're in finance, if you don't like working on Excel and you don't like your accounting classes, or you don't like making website design, I don't know, maybe that's not the career choice for you. Maybe if you really like your organizational behavior class and you find the topic extremely interesting and it's something that you get excited to study for, that's something to pay attention to. So I ask my students to pay attention to how they feel when they're doing certain things in school or certain things in class. One thing that when I was young, that I think I maybe didn't do so much of is think about why I was making certain decisions. I chose accounting because my dad is an accountant and he told me I'd be a great accountant. And I was like, I believe you, Dad, and I will become an accountant. And honestly, I was a great accountant and I still am. And I was following what a lot of students were doing, just getting my university degree, working in a job. But at a certain point, I had to pay attention to how I felt. And I realized that I need a job where I work directly with people. I need a job where I get to talk all day because that's what I do and I love to do it. I need a job where there's a lot of creativity in it, and creating course elements are super important, as super creative and important in part of the learning process. So I just tell them, pay attention how you feel, and that will help guide the decisions you make next.
Yeah. So talking along the lines of, preparing your students depending on their learning styles, very often people don't always respond to the word feel because they're thinkers more than anything else, thinking, analytical, which is more typical, so let's say, of an accounting student. So let's say you're a little bit outside the norm as far as that's concerned. But you could ask them also, what are they thinking when they're attending these classes, or that sort of thing. It occurs to me, though, that that they would probably be, that there's a lot of creativity involved, and one wouldn't think so. I mean, you're talking about accounting, which for me is
but it's so creative.
And you managed to make it creative, and I can't imagine, or I can imagine how grateful your students must be that. And how inspired they are by the way that you approach the topic. I mean, if I'd had a teacher like you, I might have enjoyed accounting. No, I don't think I would have.
Two accountants just gabbing.
Yeah, but I might have at least enjoyed the topic. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just joking. But yeah, no, it's definitely something that's very creative, right? I'm making a presentation. I have 2 hours to have my students soak up all this information. How best can I help them soak up the information? What are they very interested in, like in terms of excelling at? Most of them want to do well in the course. So it's really doing like, for my undergrad students, it's really doing like practice problems, but for my CPA students, it's completely different. It's building professional skepticism and building that professional mindset. So it really depends. Like I said, all my students are different. They're all in different phases of their education. So it's about just adapting to their needs as well. And you're right when you said, oh, they should think or feel, think about how they feel, or think about what they're thinking about when they're in these classes, because the next few years, you can always, in life go and make different decisions, but the next few years are great because you have so many resources available while you're still in school, and, so many academic advisors and counselors to help you along the way making these decisions. And even someone at my stage, when I was already a CPA, I reached out to Danielle because I needed advice and coaching on reinventing myself. And 1 year later, reinvented and happy. I remember one of our first calls, I was like, are you going to reinvent me, Danielle? Do you remember?
I don't specifically remember that. Okay. And what did I answer?
You were like, well, not exactly, but yes.
You have to be willing to change. And clearly you were.
Yes.
So, and so the creativity is incredible. And the ability to come up with that stuff. And what strikes me is, is what I talk about. You have to do who you are. What you do has to match who you are. So you are both, that person who loves to be in relationship, who loves creativity, but at the same time really has a passion for this particular topic. And so we were able to find a perfect match for that. And that's really what the work is about, right?
Yeah, and this kind of reminds me of one thing that you said many months ago. It was like, I told you that I had recently told my friends about the path I was on, and you said, "Oh, what did they say about that?" And I told them, astoundingly, many people said they were not surprised and they think I would be a fantastic teacher. But in the past, when I would tell people I was an accountant, they would literally almost fall down, thinking, like, fall in shock. They'd be like, "Are you an accountant? Are you serious? How could you be an accountant?" And now when I tell people I'm a teacher, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I see you as a teacher. You seem like you would be a really nice teacher." And I'm like, "Wow, thank you. I hope so."
It's interesting because there's also an exercise that I sometimes do, sometimes don't, in asking other people who, what do you think of me, and what do you think I should be doing with my life? There is an
Oh,
exercise
wow.
like that as well. Yes.
We didn't do that one, but I wonder what people would have answered for me.
Well, you found out eventually.
Yes, I found out the long way.
So Sabrina, if you had the chance to rewind and start all over, is there anything that you'd do differently in this journey?
No.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
No, honestly, I feel blessed. I feel so happy. I feel like the ball started rolling. I was in the right place at the right time. In 2018, many people told me this when I was applying for those teaching jobs and getting rejected. I probably applied over 100 times, I swear, for teaching jobs. Flat rejections back then, 5 years ago. And they told me teaching is all about being in the right place at the right time. And I think that everything I did until that moment, getting my CPA, going to, not only did I go to McGill, I also went to John Molson for my undergrad degree. So like going to that school, then switching schools. I think every decision I made, every office I worked at, all helped me to get to where I am today, because I really believe in destiny. And I think I'm living my destiny now. I think before it was so hard because I was on the path that was not aligned with my destiny.
Okay. Not everybody believes in destiny, but absolutely. And they also say that, you probably go through anywhere from 5 to 8 careers in your life, and probably 8 to 12 jobs in your life.
No, I agree. But I think that each job, for example, this job, I don't know what's next in terms of like what I'm going to do at school or what I'm going to do with my career. But I know that this job is the path that I'm supposed to be on. It doesn't mean I'll always be a teacher. It doesn't mean I'll always be a practicing accountant. It means that I feel like finally the wheels of the train track are back on the right, they're going on the right journey.
Right. So again, you anticipated my question. What do you think the next chapter is for you? Do you have any aspirations or goals that you're aiming for in the academic world?
In the academic world, I hope to teach more. I know that I will be teaching at John Molson for quite some time in the next I have a contract at least for the next year, and then it could be extended up to 3 years. So for sure, I'll definitely be pursuing that and be pursuing always renewing that contract. But I definitely see myself always having a creative career that I work with people, something where I think I was born to inspire people. And I think a lot of roles can fit that job. Right now, I'm a teacher and I want to inspire students, but maybe later in my career, as you said, or later in my life journey, I'll find myself wanting or craving a different type of way to connect with others, or a different type of way to inspire others. So I don't have, for example, a concrete plan, but I have my train is on the right tracks and it's going in the right direction.
That's amazing. Okay, so probably some public speaking in your future.
Yes, for sure. I want to speak to as many people as I can, help them. Especially, I've noticed a lot of things about personal finance or just basic accounting that many people can use, not just accountants. I would love to share that knowledge with other people just so they can, finance affects everybody. Our personal finances affect every aspect of our life. And the more you know about it, the more agency you have, and the happier you might be with the decisions you make.
I remember the first time we met, you used that term agency, and it baffled me because not everybody uses it in everyday language.
Oh,
What do you mean by that?
you have more control, you have more responsibility, for example. agency for me means I have the opportunity to make a decision. I have the opportunity to look into something. I have the opportunity to explore, and then it's on me to ultimately make that decision, or ultimately choose to take an action. But at least I had some control in the matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect. And it's a beautiful word.
Yeah.
And a beautiful way of thinking also. So just to round this up, what advice would you give people who are at a crossroads, who are thinking of changing, who are, worried about the future? What sort of advice would you give them?
I would say definitely follow your gut. If you're thinking about something for a long time, it's worth exploring. I would say be impulsive. Sometimes in life, it's important to take risks and be impulsive. Actually, the first meeting I made with you, I was just impulsively looking into career coaches, and I impulsively made a meeting with Danielle, and now look at us, two ladies. We go for lunch together, we talk together, she helps me, I help her, and this all happened over one impulsive decision I made at the end of summer in 2022.
Wow.
So impulsive and think about what you want.
Think about what you want, think about who you are and what you want to do.
Yeah.
Stuck in.
Don't be afraid to dream,
Yeah.
For many years I let a lot of hard work, a lot of things block me, especially that fear of public speaking. I let that really take the idea of teaching out of my brain space, but realizing that even some of your fears, for example, if you have a fear of public speaking or a fear of writing or a fear of publishing something, can be overcome, and a lot quicker than you think. 3 to 5 sessions, or maybe like 10 hours of going to this Toastmasters, and I felt well enough to later take on a job in teaching the next week 60 students.
Wow.
Yeah.
You really are an inspiration, Sabrina. So thank you for coming and sharing your story with everybody. I want to say to everybody who's listening, here's to your career reinvention. And we hope it's a beautiful one. Thank you. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to Reinventing-U with me, your host, Danielle Silverman. Tune in on the second and fourth Monday each month at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on transformationtalkradio.com. Join me and feel inspired and optimistic about your future. We only get one life, so embrace change and thrive with me. Find work that aligns best with your soul and what you enjoy. For more information, go to reinventing-u.com.